Well, greetings and salutations everybody, and welcome back to Stick Tips. Today is episode 3 and part 2 of the SNES style Wii Classic controller conundrum. So today is actually a bit of a twofer. I have in this picture a Hyperkin Scout Super Nintendo controller connected to a Hyperkin SNES to Wii adapter. Now the nice part about this adapter is that it is hardware. There is no firmware that you will ever have to update for this thing, which is great. It just puts the little pins here and there and changes the type of port that something is. And so I'm going to open this up, show you guys what I did to kind of improve the feel and kind of just compare it to the controller in the last video. Also, make sure you watch that one first, because this part is not going to make sense if you hadn't. So the glue fix that I mentioned towards the end of the last video, that did not work. It actually destroyed the controller's D-pad completely, and that's partially because I didn't let the glue dry before I put the shell back together. I thought I did, but I should have given it probably about half an hour, because I super glued, and then some of it kind of residually got on the PCB and caused some other issues. But the problem is it also messed up the conductive rubber very much so. I don't know if you're familiar with the old rubber and glue adage, but it does not bounce. So let's go ahead and go through these pictures here, and I will explain. So immediately after opening the controller, it is the same layout, 5 screws, all Phillips head. Screws are actually a little shorter though, which was nice. The PCB is actually smaller. It takes up less space inside the controller, and the shoulder buttons were mounted differently, which is kind of strange. Like the PCB for the L and R are kind of just like slotted into the PCB, and then the conductive rubber is actually in its own housing. The shoulder buttons were completely different, and actually most of this controller is assembled very differently. And then there was the 2 black little prongs coming out of the right side there. I'll get to those in a minute. So immediately after lifting the PCB and looking at the front, the D-pad is much better. The center plastic ball, it's part of the mold, same as the official Nintendo one, is not the official Nintendo Super Nintendo controller that came out back in like 1990, 1991. Not that one. The one that we looked at in the last video. Thankfully the ball is a little bigger on this one. And I had conductive rubber is not flipped over yet. So one thing I noticed is the conductive rubber of the D-pad was not moving. Turns out those little black pins essentially were part of the conductive rubber mold, and they were just kind of pulled through the PCB so it wouldn't move. So it's so the D-pad would not slide around as much, and the parts that actually communicate with the PCB were isolated, which is great. The other thing I loved about this was the conductive rubber for the ABXY are actually ridged, so it makes a much snappier feel. And I'll have a direct comparison to that a bit later on. Here's after removing the conductive rubber for the D-pad, which wasn't that difficult. It was pretty simple to kind of just pull away from the PCB pretty from a right angle in a way, and without damaging it. I thought I was gonna have to like cut them or something, but no, didn't have to do any of that. It's just was wedged in there very securely. So here was the first fix that I thought of, because the left input on the D-pad was not working consistently at all. It was cutting out quite a bit, and that's a bit of a problem. It was very stiff too. The D-pad initially, before even opening it up, just like plugging it in, trying it out, it had a lot of resistance to it, to the point where it kind of hurt my thumb to play games on it. And but I was looking through my extra conductive rubber pieces that I had from destroying some unwanted controllers, and I found these 4 that are currently on the D-pad in this picture. Not anymore. And they actually came to a point. I believe they were shoulder buttons beforehand, and the point that they came to on the rubber portion was actually the exact same width as the openings on the underside of the D-pad mold. So I kind of placed them into the edges, and the spacing was almost identical, like pretty much identical, as you can tell in the picture here. So I put it back together, and it actually worked pretty well. It was still very stiff because those parts were very deep, and it was just extra material. So and I don't know if you can tell in the picture or not, if depends on what size screen and what quality you're watching this in, but the conductive rubber for the D-pad seemed kind of like dirty. Like there was like little flakes and stuff on it. It just didn't shine like conductive rubber has, kind of like a sheen to it. So I went ahead and took a damp toothbrush to that whole piece and just kind of like brushed it down a little bit. Partially, and the part of the reason I used a brush was to soften the material, to hopefully like wear down some of that stiffness. So here's the ABXY from the previous controller and the Hyperkin Scout side by side. As you can tell, the ridging is much more pronounced on the shape of the housing for the conductive pieces. Okay, and here is the controller from the last video and the Hyperkin Scout side by side without the conductive rubber for the D-pad. In the Hyperkin Scout, this is when those clear pieces were still in there, as I was testing the functionality. As I mentioned, the controller on the right is not functional anymore. The D-pad doesn't work at all. I even cleaned up the PCB and all that stuff, which actually I also did for the Hyperkin before putting everything back together. Once again, I kind of was more meticulous about it before putting the conductive rubber for the D-pad back in. But now, the controller in my hands, here the Hyperkin Scout, has the conductive rubber, the original conductive rubber back inside. And those extra conductive rubber pegs I basically just put back with the other ones. And yes, after brushing it a little bit, cleaning it, letting it kind of air dry, works perfectly now. And it did soften it up a little bit. So it improved the responsiveness and it improved the feel. And I'm basically going to show you guys there is no lag difference, and it is better for control than even just using the Wiimote on certain Wii games. So I have here, let me go ahead and get rid of this. So yeah. So I have here loaded up the Wii edition of Super Mario All-Stars, which was re-released for Mario's 25th anniversary. If you got the special edition, it even came with a little soundtrack thing and a manual special box. It was really cool. It was very much like the Kirby collection that was also released on the Wii. And this is such a great collection. So those of you that want to play on an HD TV, Super Mario All-Stars, and you don't have, one of the analog, systems, and you still want to play on official hardware, this is a great way to do it. It's a great way to do it. And this is running on the Wii U. Not that it really matters, but, Wii games on the Wii U. So I have a 2-player mode started. Player 1 is I'm going to be playing Mario as the Hyperkin Scout. Player 2 is just going to be the Wiimote. If it wants to reconnect. There it goes. Yeah, it's reconnecting. Cool. I had to do the sync to actually even get 2-player mode to start, but yeah, so basically comparing a controller going through an adapter plugged into a Wiimote compared to just a Wiimote communicating, and showing that there's basically no sort of signal loss or added lag or anything. And from the extensive testing that I've been doing this week, I've been playing my Wii U a lot more with this Hyperkin Scout. And let's go ahead and actually just start the level while I talk about this. But I know I didn't mention it at the beginning of the episode because I didn't really think it was that. I didn't think it'd be a point of contention, but you may have noticed I didn't mention the price. So the Hyperkin Scout I picked mine up for only $12. Full MSRP is $15. I saved I think I saved $3 buying it on sale. Which, for a $15 controller, saving like $3, that's pretty good, The adapter is only $10 normal price, at least on Amazon. So I paid $22 for this solution, which is actually the same price or even less than the 8BitDo 2.4G SN30, which I have raved about in the past. But yeah, this one is same price at full price, and even cheaper for what I paid. And this is as implied with the 8BitDo SN30 2.4G. That is not a wired solution. It still is a wireless controller, plugged into a wireless controller. It's 2.4 gigahertz wireless though, so it doesn't really feel like it's wireless. It feels, like there's no problem with latency, but it's there is potential signal loss going on, depending on how many devices you have in the in your game room that use 2.4 gigahertz. And yeah, it's still likely going to be, little to no latency, but the clear advantage here is the Hyperkin Scout. In my opinion, the main issue I have with the Wiimote sideways is you really can't use it for all games. Like, it works for certain Wii games and Virtual Console NES games because you really only have A and B to worry about. That's pretty much it. So, for the most part, if you're playing like Game Boy Advance, Super Nintendo, anything like that, you need a classic controller plugged into your Wiimote. And for me, that is most of my library on my Wii U. So, it's, whoops, jeez. I'm a little bit tired, which is why my reflexes are not that good right now. Uh-oh. No, 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 I want that. Ho ho ho. I may suck, but I'm not stupid. I didn't know that would work. I was like, this would be really funny if I make it like... I thought either I'm narrowly gonna miss myself or... Yeah. But, yeah. Like, the Super Nintendo layout just feels better to me. And, the Hyperkin Scout just feels awesome. It feels so good, guys. I actually need that shell. Or this shell. Whatever. I'm not picky. Fuck. Damn it. I think I despawned him. This is not meant for you, Goomba. There we go. But yeah, like, the D-pad on the Wiimote is so small, you know? And you just don't have access to enough buttons. That's a big part of the problem. And the bonus for going this route, actually, is you also have a Super Nintendo controller that's very competent if you just need a replacement for your actual Super Nintendo. You know, huge bonus. Huge bonus. Like, I personally don't. I've never owned a Super Nintendo, but, you know, I have a lot of things I can use a classic controller, so. Because I am a big fan of, adapters and such. So yeah, I've, the comparison here isn't to be like, oh man, look how shitty Luigi is. Look how great, like, Mario is. Like, he's obviously, like, just has a better controller when he's playing Mario. It's like, no. I'm very used to both of these solutions. I'm just saying I don't like the feel of using a Wiimote. I'm used to it because I've done it so much. I don't like to, is the point. And for some games, I don't have the option to, you know, actually use something else. Like my favorite game on the Wii, Kirby's Return to Dreamland. You have to use a Wiimote held sideways. And, it's not great. It's really unfortunate. Oh wait, why am I going down here? This is not the fast way to beat the level. Shit. Plus I want to get that one-up dog. Come on. Better fly. Oh shit. That was early. Thought I was late, but I was early. Damn. But yeah, I've played these levels quite a bit because I've recorded this video like 5 times now. And by the way, if you guys are disappointed that the audio sounds different, it's because I'm using a different microphone than I usually do, than I did in the last episode of Stick Tips, actually. So, this is the MXL V67G studio condenser microphone. I typically use a dynamic vocal microphone, which part of the reason why is for sound isolation. This one picks up everything, and the only time that I can really use it in my recording environment is when the world is quiet, which is kind of a rare luxury. So it's yeah, not exactly good. I think it's that one. Yeah, it's that one. Shit, too far. That's the ricochet, dog. You know, I could probably just run and fly. Shit, nope. I could have made it too, if I didn't stop my momentum by hitting the corner. You know, I'll try it with Lug. Still gonna get the one up though. See, it's a time of adjustment too. It's just like, okay, the D-pad is much smaller, the buttons don't feel as good. Like, it's... when you're used to the convenience of a SNES pad, it's kind of hard. Damn. There it is. Oh crap. Oh wow. Wow. I didn't even know there were all those coins up there. That's pretty cool. So, yeah, basically I think this is a much better solution. And honestly, I might have just got unlucky when it comes to the D-pad. However, I've read reviews on this controller that say the same thing, like it's too stiff at first. So yeah, that's my solution. Just take a brand new toothbrush, like either boil it or just run it under scathing hot water for a while, and just brush down that conductive rubber, you know? And actually, I found out, I found an article from a dude that is, that restores old controllers and has done so professionally before. And he was saying, you can actually boil the conductive rubber for like about a minute, and that can restore the stiffness. If you have an old mushy D-pad in a controller that you like. So I thought that was pretty cool. I had not heard about that one before, but yeah, you're Lemmy. If it is Lemmy, I don't know if that is your real name. Get out of here, Lemmy. No one wants to talk to you. But yeah, guys, that is my tip. My basically solution for now. Yeah, I even got my old generic Wii Classic controller to work because I thought I was going to want to use that before I got this to work. And that has even more inputs, including the home button on there. It has the 4 shoulder buttons, the 2 analog sticks. I mean, man, that thing's got all the inputs you could possibly need for a Wii game. Not so much modern platforms, especially like PlayStation 4, because you have so many inputs, like potential. I mean, the touchpad is usually dumbed down to either 1 or 2 inputs, but still a lot more inputs. So, and clickable sticks, which that was yeah, not new to the PlayStation 4, but even going back to the PS2 had clickable sticks, and Nintendo hasn't had clickable sticks until the Wii U Pro Controller. Right, the Wii did not. So yeah. But yeah, guys, that is it for this episode. Let me know what you guys think down in the comment section. Do you guys like how this microphone sounds? Do you prefer the other one? I don't really like this one. I think it's okay. It sounds fuller. But here's the main problem is it picks up way too much. It picks up everything. And that's just the nature of the beast. It's a studio condenser, while I prefer a hypercardioid dynamic, because it just gives you that better sound isolation for when, you know, I mean, to be honest, most people that do very professional quality recordings in various environments are going to use those dynamic vocal microphones. If not vocal microphones, then either you know, still a dynamic mic, so not a condenser. Condenser works, but it's just a different kind of solution in a way. For me, if I had a treated, like a very well treated gaming room, with not a lot of surfaces, I might use a condenser, but that is not preferable. For me, I would go with a better dynamic mic, maybe a shotgun mic, or just like a high-end dynamic, for the sake of sound isolation. Or if it was an actual like studio type thing and I knew how much noise I was going to be expecting, and for the most part it's a quiet recording environment, then yes, I would go with a condenser. But the fact that a condenser picks up everything so clearly is a big part of the problem. And right now this only sounds as good as it does because it is dead silent right now. Like, there is no background noise. I even like turned off some fans that I usually have on like while streaming, and various other things. Like, there's no water running, nobody's using the microwave in the other room, nobody's using there is nothing. And this is a very rare opportunity. So believe you me, if the normal noises were happening right now of people going about their business, I would not use this take. I would not use this recording at all, strictly because of how much this bad boy right here is picking up. And it sounds okay. That's about it. It does not sound good enough for me to go, oh hey, yeah, I'm going to leave this plugged in all the time. No, not gonna happen. The other thing about this that is very different is, actually, you know what, that's a different rant. I'm gonna go on a different rant another time. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode of Stick Tips, and maybe we'll see you on the next one. Till then, have a beautiful day, and if you have an idea for an episode of Stick Tips, put it down in the comments section. I'm currently probably going to move on to either the Switch or the PS4 or the PlayStation 2. Probably. I don't have as much to say about the PS2, but the next episode will probably be about the Switch or the PS4. Different controllers, blah blah blah. If you want me to do another episode on the Wii or the Wii U, I could do that. And actually, I might do one more for the Wii U before moving to the Switch and PS4. But yeah, let me know. I'm probably going to be retiring this mic semi-permanently. But if I really like the way this video sounds, I might use it every so often, so you never know. But yeah, catch you around, guys. Until next time.